let us start from exactly where we ended at Module 2. Okay, so this is the problem that you are working with in the final assignment of Module 2. It's a problem that describes a situation that many real-world companies may face. The specific situation here is that the company has to decide whether to speed up the collection of accounts receivable or not. Okay, so you have the data on annual sales. Currently, the company receives 80% immediately, okay, and 20% after 1 year. And the firm has the choice to move to 90% immediate collection. So you get 90% of the cash immediately, right? But then the cost is that if the firm does that, sales are going to go down by 2%. Okay, so that was the nature of the problem. And in the final assignment of Module 2, you worked with these numbers to derive these cash flows, the cash flows for both collection systems. So those are the values of cash flows that are coming in the firm in both cases. Okay, so in the existing system, you get 800 today, right? It's 80% of sales, and then you get the full amount next year and the year after, which is 1 billion. Okay, if you move to the new system, you're going to get 882 today, but the cost is that sales are going to go down, right? So your sales go down to 980, right? If you need to recap this calculation, please go to the final assignment of Module 2. You can find a video where I explain that. You can look up your work as well, okay? But this is the situation, right? And you can see in the numbers the trade-off that the firm faces, right? If you move into to quicker collection, you're going to get cash earlier, right? The amount of cash that you get today increases, okay? But your sales goes down, right? This is the fundamental trade-off that we talked about when we were talking about working capital investments like receivables and inventory, right? Increasing receivables is likely to increase sales because customers like, you know, they will appreciate having time to pay for the goods, but it costs the company in terms of time to receive cash. So it ties up cash. Cash takes longer to come in. Okay, so now we have these numbers. Our job is going to be to develop tools that are going to allow the company to really make a decision on whether they should change the collection system or not. Okay? To do that, we have to introduce this very important idea, which is the idea of incremental cash flows. Okay? The way that I like to think about incremental cash flows is extremely simple. Okay? It really is the idea of new minus old. Anytime a company has to make a decision on an investment, the relevant cash flows that we're going to consider are new minus old. So whatever the new system is minus the old system. The new product minus the old product, if there is one. Okay? So these ideas you're going to see as we progress, it's a very, very general idea. So remember this concept, new minus old. Okay? Let's apply it here to our receivables example, right? So you have the old system, the cash flows in the existing system, that's the old, okay? And then you have the cash flows in the new system, that's the new, right? So the idea of incremental is just to do new minus old, right? It's pretty simple here, right? So the incremental cash flows are going to be $82 million today, right? It's 882 minus 800. And then starting tomorrow, next year, and the year after, right? You're going to lose $20 million, right? So look at these numbers, think about them for a while, right? It seems, just by looking at these numbers, it seems that the new system looks quite attractive, right? You're getting $82 million and you're just losing $20 million, right? So it seems good. The problem, as we're going to see next, is that something is missing, okay? Remember what we've been talking about. We talked about this idea in Module 1, for example. Every time a company makes a decision, you have to think about all the consequences. It's not just today, it's not just current profits, it's not just current cash flows. You have to think about every consequence, every cash flow, right? To value a firm, for example, to find a stock price, you have to think about all the future cash flows. So really, what is missing here is the future, okay? Future cash flows. What is going to happen in the future, right? And if you think about this problem, if you look at your assignment solution, it's very easy to see that what will happen is that the same situation is going to repeat itself. Every year, the same situation is going to happen over and over again. In the existing system, right, what happens is you sell 1,000 or 1 billion here, right, collect 800 million immediately, and then you collect the receivables from last period, which are equal to 200 million, so your total collection is 1 billion every year. With the new system, you sell 980, collect 882 immediately, and then you collect the receivables from last period, okay, which are equal to 98, so you're going to get $980 million every year. And this is going to go on, right? The way we're going to write this down is as a timeline, okay? I like to think of this sequence of cash flows as a timeline. And let me go over here to show you something important, okay? Notice that here we have 3 dots, okay? These 3 dots here at the end, okay? What these 3 dots are going to mean in this timeline is that these cash flows are going to go on, you know, into the future, okay? So these go on and on, okay? This is what these 3 dots mean, and then these 3 dots are going to show up in other problems as well, okay? When we write the timeline, we may not write today, next year, year after. A simpler way of writing this with numbers, you can represent today by writing a 0. Next year you write a 1. Year after you write 2. The year after you write 3. And then it goes on, okay? The advantage of doing this with numbers is that you can work with timelines even if the length of the period here is not a year, you can still work with timelines, right? So for example, if this is a month, if cash flows happen every month, you can still represent cash flows using a timeline, okay? Except that in that case, the length of the period is going to be 1 month. If you recall Module 2, when we worked on our inventory management problem, we already had a timeline. In that case, the timeline was represented in quarters, right? Because the problems there is that the company had to have the inventory in place a quarter before the goods were sold, okay? So this is the idea of a timeline. Every time we work with these corporate decision problems, we're going to try to calculate incremental cash flows and then express and then write them down in a timeline. Okay? So here's the timeline that we just talked about, okay? 0, 1, 2, 3, and then the little, the 3 dots, okay? And now we have the numbers. We have all the numbers here, right? You can see, you can express the trade-off we're thinking about in numbers. So if you speed up the collection payment, the collection of receivables, you're going to get $82 million today, and then you're going to lose $20 million every year starting next year, okay? So what should the company do? Just by looking at these numbers, now it's not obvious, right? Now it's not obvious because this $20 million is going to go on and on, So is that good or bad for the company, right? Is that going to be better? Is it better to receive the $82 million today and then lose $20 million every year? Or is it better not to do anything and keep the old collection system? To answer this question, we're going to have to develop the concept of net present value. The reason I love this example is that it really shows you why we need to think about net present value to answer questions about corporate decision. Okay, we are missing this concept. That's where we're going next. We're going to develop the concept of net present value, and then we're going to use the concept of net present value to answer this question. Should the company do it or not?